Hey everybody, it's Latasha Dozier with Selah Theater Project and Theater Talk. We're so happy to see you guys on this Monday evening. We hope that you had a great and wonderful week and weekend last week. And I am so excited to introduce some of the cast members from Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Most of you may know Guess Who's Coming to Dinner from the 1967 film that starred Sidney Poitier and Katharine Hepburn. It was a really revolutionary piece that was a little bit ahead of its time that talked about an interracial couple coming home for the first time to a white liberal or progressive set of parents, and also getting to meet the Black parents in Act Two and coming to terms with the two lovebirds and how love may be colorblind. So we're going to invite our guest here in a little bit. But for now, we just want to welcome you and hope you enjoy this week's Theater Talk with the cast of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. Hello. I'm going to start adding all of my friends here. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hey.
So we have a slew of folks to introduce you all to. I'm just going to go around what I see on my screen. So Ariel, who was our understudy for the role of Matilda Tilly Binks, who was the servant of the Draytons. We also have Paige Yulovich, who played Christina Drayton. We have Tracy Connard, who played the most hated character in the whole show, Hilary St. George. We have Joanne Thompson, who played Mary Prentice. Richard Clem, who played Monsignor Ryan, and many people were concerned about his drinking on stage. We have Will Speakman, who played Matthew Drayton, and Eric Lee Santafel, who played John Prentice Sr. So, hi, everybody.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello.
It's like, for some of you, it's long time no see, and for a few of you, it's like, I'll see you tomorrow. So it was an incredible journey, right? For all of you. Did you guys have a good time putting this all together?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. I would hope they say that. I was the director. That would kind of suck.
Yeah, we'll take the $5 after the show's over.
What
Okay.
happens when you say no? It was horrible. It's the worst thing ever.
So Paige was actually the one that brought this show to my attention after Sidney Poitier died. And we were both kind of heartbroken. And of course, Paige went immediately to how do we solve this heartbreak and found the script for Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And I was shocked that it was a stage play. It was adapted by Todd Creedler, who also adapted our spring show last year, Terms of Endearment, that both Paige and Richard were a part of, and Eric. So tell me a little bit. I would love to hear from all of you, one person at a time, about your character and how you were able to step into character.
Excuse me while I have a drink.
Oh, my God.
So we're starting with Richard, I guess.
I guess Richard is starting us off. Go for it, Richard.
What a character. This was a challenge. I mean, seriously. And it was interesting that the feedback I got after the shows and Will was standing right there next to me on most of the occasions when we were meeting the patrons after the show about I had never done an Irish accent on stage before. I've done a lot of others, but not Irish. And then I had to point out to Latasha on the occasion of our opening night, it also being St. Patrick's Day. No pressure.
Lots of
No
pressure.
pressure.
Lots of pressure.
But I think it turned out well. Judging from the feedback we got, it turned out well. The character itself, I always felt, just reading through the script and going through the lines, that I became Matt Drayton's conscience. Basically, he was conflicted most of the show with what, the situation he had at hand, and he just needed someone to vocalize what he knew to be right in his own heart. And I think that's what the Monsignor did, is basically just reiterate to him exactly who he was and what he believed. So that's basically what my character amounted to.
Monsignor had a lot of hard hitters to Matt and his progressiveness. So I didn't get to hear a lot from the audience about how they may have internalized some of those things at all, but I would be intrigued to know how some of our audience members that have labeled themselves as progressives may have felt after seeing the show, if they were challenged a little bit or not, and just how far they've come along. So I feel like Monsignor was a crucial character. You know how sometimes you have shows with little smaller character parts or whatever, you're like, what was the purpose of that? Monsignor definitely had a full definition. All right, who wants to go next?
Conscience.
Go ahead.
He was like the conscience or something.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I found your perspective of Monsignor Ryan being Mr. Drayton's consciousness like amazing, because I never thought of it like that. I thought of it like a question between like what Drayton seemed as very illogical kind of man, not a very spiritual man. So it kind of like, it felt like to me that Monsignor was the one that brought out the very emotional side to Mr. Drayton, in my personal opinion. So like when you just did consciousness, like it just clicked.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was interesting too, in reading through the lines quite a bit, and going back and forth with Will in those scenes. It as much as the whole show focused on the interracial aspect of it, there was a lot of times in there where the Monsignor pointed out the relationship between Matt and his wife. I thought that came out to it as well, and it's not something that you take. It's not something that was right up there in your face in front, again, because the show is what it is, but that was always back there in that behind him, saying like, what about the relationship you have with your wife? Does she count for anything?
Right.
That kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I think it kind of called out I think it kind of called out the aspects, because Matt, which for those who don't know, that's who I played. Matt was worried about his daughter, and his wife could see the love there. So that was the conflict, is, okay, fine, I can see the love there, but I didn't want to listen to it, my wife, because she didn't make sense to me. She was not thinking at all about the dangers and the ridicule and everything that our daughter was going to face. But in the end, with the Monsignor calling that stuff out, I think it kind of helped Matt bring himself back around and merge those two worlds. It's okay to care and it's okay to worry, but you have to be there for your daughter and recognize the love that she shares.
Right. So just a little backstory. So Guess Who's Coming to Dinner is about a young white woman in 1967 coming home from an internship in Hawaii with her newly minted fiance, who happens to be a Black man. And it was interesting that a lot of folks, when I was sitting around people, they would turn around and say, when was the show written? And I would say 1967, but people couldn't really distinguish if it was from 1967 or today, except for a few hint markers here and there about the time period we were in. So it was pretty interesting that people were still able to connect to the emotions of the parents of Matt and Christina and their concerns about their white daughter marrying a black man, and vice versa. The one part I did like about this show is that it showed the black parents' perspective as well and their concerns too. Eric,
Yep.
Joe, any
Well,
of you all want to take?
You want? Yeah, I got stuff to say. Eric, you want to go first?
No, you have something to say.
Okay, so for those that know me, they're not at all surprised that I have something to say. No,
Like a world it up.
I was all right now. I was fortunate enough to be able to play. What was my Mary Princess, the mother of the young man in question, Dr. John Prentice Jr., alongside Eric Lee Sandiful, who played my husband, John Sr. I feel like the play did a wonderful job of, and this is no fault of any of ours, did a wonderful job of fleshing out the roller coaster of emotions with the Draytons. Not as much with the Prentices. For those who didn't come see the play or are not familiar with the play, the Prentices don't appear until the second act. So the whole first act is spent fleshing through the emotions and the roller coaster of the ups and the downs. And as plays do, it's an introduction. And with that introduction, then you see, oh, here's this man, and oh, he's older, and oh my God, he's black. And how do we feel about that? And these progressive liberal parents suddenly are forced to walk the walk that they talk. And so that is shown like that's series, like how that comes to be. And then there's Hillary, which I'm gonna leave to Miss Tracy to deal with that. And then also Tilly, which I'll leave for Miss Ariel to speak on. But just the whole roller coaster with all of those people in the first act and how they're trying to come to grips with this. Right. After the son has not been nearly as straightforward with his parents as Joey has been with her parents, because he was going to write them a letter.
I knew she was going to say
anyway.
That. I knew
you were going to say that.
I knew she was going to say that.
Anybody out there that's a parent, seriously, you gonna write me a letter? Talking about I don't care who you marrying. You gonna write me a letter? But anyway, I digress. So John and Mary, like, they show up. Thank goodness for Joanna, because it is because of Joanna that they even know anything that's going on. Right. And so they are suddenly invited into this world that they would not normally find themselves in. Mary, my character, actually says as much to Christina, Paige's character. Like, we would probably never have met, much less had any type of socializing under any other circumstances. And so we walk into this, and it's a very comical, awkward introduction to Act 2. Probably one of my favorite parts of the play. That suddenly John and Mary are like they're trying to digest everything that the Draytons have had a minute to digest. And I think at the end of the day, basically, and so we don't really get to see, particularly with John. I feel like with Mary, you get to see a bit of how she comes to accept this, because she gets to have a conversation with her son that's not yelling, unlike her husband and son. And she listens to where he is and how he was led to love this woman and how it has impacted his life. So she gets to some kind of understanding, more so, in my opinion, than John, his father, my husband. But yeah, I feel like at the end of the day, and
you're chopping up.
Yeah, she's chopping up.
Like, ja. It sounds like music.
I know. It sounds like robotic music. I'm
At the
going,
end of the show,
oh, there she is. There she is. Where'd she go?
I don't know. There I am.
There
Both sets of parents are scared to death about how this world is going to treat their children. And that's and speaking as a parent, for me, at the end of the day, that's what this is about.
Paige, tell us a little bit about Christina.
Well, I think everyone else has kind of described her pretty well. That I think she's the first one that accepts the relationship at face value, but that first shock just throws her off completely, and she tries to recover quickly, but it takes a while to kind of work through it. And she's won over pretty quickly by Dr. Prentice. But I loved her naivete in many cases, like when she's talking to Mary Prentice and says, I wish we'd met under different circumstances. That Joanne says, Mary's reply is, how would we have met? Or when Dr. Prentice tells her that it's going better with Matt and Christina than it would be if his father had met Joey at first. So I think she lives in this naive expectation that we are all, together in this, and they're not. It's like she's expecting the other parent to suddenly be like, oh, we love the fact that our son's going to marry into this upper middle class white family. And it never occurred to her that maybe they don't like this either.
And they don't at the beginning. I think Mary comes really quickly in line with Christina as mothers are concerned. And then the dads are kind of like, coming to the realist. They want their children to be realistic of the time that they are in.
Right.
And I think that's as a result of the different conversations that are had. Like the conversations that Christina and Joey have and the conversations that Mary and John Jr. have are very different than the conversations that Matt and Joey have and that John Sr. and John Jr. have. So the mothers are in more of a listening and trying to understand and really hear their children, whereas the dads are like, just not that they don't love their kids, but they're just like ultra protective. And then also the Black couple has a very different life experience than the white couple.
Right.
So there's also that.
Right.
I also agree with you on that, Joe. More so like as like the relationship in the 1960s / like late 1960s, with how like Christina dealt her inner turmoil was very much so like very silent because she still was disgruntled through and throughout. And so it was like a subtle climax until she was like, nope, that's it. Like, at least in my personal opinion. And like Christina and Matt's contrast on how they outwardly express their uncomfortability with the situation was vastly different because I think because Mr. Drayton, he's a reporter on things like John states, he likes the idea of an interracial couple for his job, but when it comes to in his own household, he pulls out his editing knife, right? Because Mr. Drayton, in my personal opinion, he saw the difficulties that, for example, like Dr. Prentice's family has gone through. You know what I'm saying? So like
go ahead.
And so like I feel like Eric's character, John Sr., is the foil to Drayton because Drayton, he got to see it in a light for his job where he doesn't live through it. He just reports about it. So he's scared of it in that aspect. While John Sr., he had a whole speech like, I live in this darkness. I am this darkness because they put us in this darkness.
It's multi-generational. It really, the play
Yeah,
is very well written in the sense of
it is.
it talks about the two different generations and how they see each other. And I think there is no better monologue than John's monologue when he's talking to his father about, especially when he says, who put the color signs up, who
Yeah.
did these things, and not only who did these things, but who stuck by them, who believed them to be true. And he's talking from his generation, which is a younger
Right.
generation, saying we just don't follow that philosophy. And we're seeing that now.
Now,
In this world that we live in now, we are seeing times kind of repeating themselves as far as generation is concerned. This is a huge gap in generation too. You know, what the kids say, the boomers, the millennials, the Gen Z, and now Gen Alpha, that huge range is all living in one society.
You
And
forgot us, Gen X.
And
It's
Gen
okay
X.
though. We're used to it. We're used to it.
It's Gen X and Y. They're like the smallest generations that I know.
Everyone forgets about it.
Gen
It's
Y.
all right.
Yeah, Gen X.
don't sleep on us now.
I'm not sleeping on you. So it's this huge generational gap that is happening in our world, and we're starting to see that now with how each generation is interpreting, especially the polar division of our nation right now. Another part to that too is I spoke to quite a few people that could hear how it would be if it was related to the LGBTQIA community as well, which
Right.
that was not something I had initially had in my brain. But then as I kept diving into it, I was like, ooh, yeah. So what would have happened if we had said it in present time, with, maybe Joey coming home with a with a Jane
Yeah.
or
I thought about that at the beginning. I was like, yeah, you can flip it like that.
Yeah. Because I did have one parent that came to me and shared something with me that her daughter had just come out, and this show kind of helped her in the sense of being able to have that hard conversation with her husband who didn't know. So it's interesting the bits and pieces that people are able to take away from it, because everyone comes in a different walk in life, but they all witness the same thing and they still walk out with different parts of it. So it's super, super cool. And that's the main thing that I love about theater, is being used as a tool for conversation. Speaking of conversations, I'm sure you guys had a lot of conversations on the two Saturdays. Both Saturdays were huge. So on March 18th, we had a talk back with the cast that was moderated by Coming to the Table, the Northern Shenandoah Valley chapter. And then on Saturday, we had the scholarship dinner for our Larry Lamar Yates Memorial Scholarship Fund, which had over 80 people there. And there were lots of conversations happening at the tables before, during, and after. Joe got to see the first act because she's not in act 2, and sat at the table and watched it like she had never watched a rehearsal or read the script ever. But she was still mad at John about that letter. And so
Still mad.
Yeah.
Still mad.
So it's so tell me bits and pieces of what you heard back from audience members on any show day, 1, and 2, how does that fuel you as an actor?
So for me personally, I actually got to talk with the main person that was hosting Coming to the Table, and because
Miss Ella.
Yeah, Miss Ella, yes. Miss Ella, and she was talking about, because I'm mixed, so I'm Black, Indigenous, and white, and I was also explaining to her, like, I know the tribe, I kind of know where I'm going with this. I was asking her, hey, is it just strictly, for African Americans, or is it, does it branch out to other, people of color or, you know, diversity, like indigenous people? And she's like, yes, we actually have people for it. And she explained how basically the slave masters, you know, that kept the records and the connections to figuring out her history and who she was connected with and who she was cousins with that she never imagined being cousins with. And how, you know, with these connections, she might have some legal bindings or ties, or even like some genetic history to like owning some land that she can possibly get, because coming to the table is to connect to the community and these people that are connected to the slave masters and like the families of the slave masters. You know, they brought reparations for what they did in the past to help generations to have the interconnected connectivity to help, you know, their lineage, which I found was very beautiful. And also like how to get over that trauma, you know, of just not knowing where you are and feeling like you're in a bubble, like just floating. I thought that was really cool how she put it in that way. So
Cool.
She blew my mind. Like, she really just completely blew my mind. It had never crossed my mind in my genealogy research to try to go back and trace it to the people that had been enslaved by my heirs. And I still don't know how I feel about it, but I'm thinking about it. We don't have kids. So, I mean, I could potentially leave something to those people, but it's a very uncomfortable idea to me. It's going to take me a while to kind of digest it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else? I hear chimes.
I do too. Wind chimes.
Sorry,
Tracy.
Oh, Tracy's outside. Okay. I was like, I thought
I'm
it was
sorry, I
mine.
had to move into the old
Struggling to get a
stay
good
on the
connection.
line.
Bless her heart.
And I didn't actually have a chance to chat with a lot of the audience members. A lot of it was through the walking through the lines, just getting compliments, talking about how relevant the show still was. Which is, you know, Tasha, you mentioned that a little bit earlier. People saying, "Well, wow, it's written so far back," and it's a shame that it is still that relevant. And of course, there was a lot of offers to send Richard to AA for the Monsignor. So
Actually,
yeah,
they actually
was
wanted to be a
interesting,
keynote speaker at an AA meeting. I don't know how I heard that.
exactly.
Oh,
But the thing that probably touched me the most, and this was on the very first show, when Tasha told me that there were men in the audience that were crying.
Yeah.
And that, you know, it hit me in two different ways. The first one was, okay, that kind of performance, and it touched you that much. So as an actor, that feels really good. The other one was the message, because it was that last monologue of Matt's that goes through the whole day and summarizes the whole day of what happened. And then at the very end, adding his support and talking about the hatred and the bigotry that this young couple is going to face and how they have to hold on to each other. And it's really, for me, that last couple little paragraphs in there, that was the ultimate expression of love. That was telling these young people, you're going to have a hell of a time in your life. Your kids are going to have a hell of a time in this life. But you have us, you have each other, you have your parents, and we're going to be there for you, and we're going to help you through this. And if that's what brought the tears to the eyes of the audience members, then we did our job in this show. We showed them that no matter what, all the ugliness that's out there, that the love that you can have and hold with each other is going to conquer everything, no matter what. And that's a pretty special message to be able to put out there.
Especially with support. Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was standing beside Will most nights on the nights we meet and greet the patrons as they're coming through. And I think the best thing I ever heard addressed was one of the patrons came to Will and said, "I know that dad." He was talking about Will's character and saying like, "I know that dad. I am that dad." And that was kind of like, I heard him say that, and I'm going like, yes, that's exactly the message we wanted to get through.
Yeah.
I find it very interesting that the three most poignant monologue situations for me were from the men in the show. From Will at the end, like, yo, that, and especially like when you could tell, like when it would get to Will, I was like, boy, don't you break. Don't you sit here and make us all cry on stage.
He got me the last Saturday. He got me good.
Yeah, like, and sitting there watching him, like you have, like those of us on stage, like we got a front row seat, and like literally I'm here and Will's like right here. And I'm like, yeah, don't do it. Don't do it, Will. Don't break right now. But it was just very touching to see him as an actor and as a human just connect with that material. That monologue at the end, obviously, we all agree was incredibly special. I'm sorry, there's a spider on my ceiling. And I was like, what is that? What? And sorry, it's fine. It's fine. And with Eric, when he's talking to his son, that just, and again, I was fortunate enough to have a front row seat for that one as the wifey hanging in the background, because you know that's what we wifeys did back in the 60s apparently. And that right, Christina? And then even with Richard's character, the Monsignor, you know, as several people have mentioned, he was kind of like Will's character's, Matt Drayton's conscience. Like even like the Monsignor had some pretty powerful things to say. Yeah. So I find it interesting as I'm sitting here listening to everyone recount various things that, the three men, honestly, the most poignant for me, the most poignant monologues. I think
it's important that you point that out, one, and two, that it is important that pieces have strong male emotional connection and pieces to it, because like I told Will, that on opening night there were 4 men with their wives, and I'm watching the wives' reactions, looking at their husbands like, are you crying? You know, so and having that emotional connection and feeling safe enough in a space to be able to have that kind of emotion. I think in theater, a lot of the times it's freely given to a lot of the female characters to be hyper emotional. And this one was really, really polar opposite. And so I think it hit a different demographic than what we had expected it to hit. Monsignor, my favorite line Monsignor has is, they are this country.
Mm-hmm. I knew you were going to say they are this country.
That's how he said it.
Change this stinking world.
It was always, and it was with a drink in his hand. And
that holds a lot of power in that message with it.
And Will's character be pour another goddamn drink.
So it's that was always the most powerful line for me. I think the funniest line for me in the whole show, believe it or not, will probably be Paige's line, "Can I fix you another drink?"
That was
After she like lays Will out, you know, on his butt, and then just runs off with a cup and fixes a drink. But
I thought Paige's line was, "Should I lay down for this?" Or that
one hit me harder than that. That one, and oh my gosh, I just had it in my head. Y'all keep talking; it'll come back to me.
I still think the funniest line is the opening of Act 2, and we're all sitting there in silence, and Dr. Prentice goes, "I was going to write you a letter."
and it
And
just turns back around.
all the characters go. Like,
And
we
he just
know
turns back
that's
around
wrong,
with this
that's the
deadpan look
wrong
on his face, like I didn't say anything.
And
I
I'm gonna tell you right there, every
It's
black mama
Joe's,
that came
yep.
to see that show
Yeah.
was right there with me.
Yes.
Like, what?
Yeah.
You was gonna write a letter? That's okay. So here's what I wanted to crack up at every single time. So shortly, like it's Richard. It's Richard actually. Is like the series of like Paige's character. You know, we're trying to make conversation because Will's character Matt Drayton is upstairs getting dressed. And so we're all awkward there trying to make conversation and nobody's really communicating with anybody. And the two youngins are feeling awkward as heck. And, you know, Richard's like, hey, anybody want a drink? And so then we go out to the terrace because the Draytons, the Prentices spend a lot of time out on the terrace, by the way. So we come back in to meet Matt Drayton. I think it's at this point. And then, you know, it's like Mr. Drayton asks, you know, Mr. Prentice, Miss Prentice, like, how is your whatever, pleasant. And I think he makes the mistake of saying, so what is it that you asked, Will? Because Richard's like, oh, Lord.
How
Like,
long was the
And
drive?
that's when I ask you, how long did the trip take?
How long did the trip
And
take?
the little senior's
It's
like,
just-
oh,
we were
Lord.
just getting to that.
I
Here we
wanted
go
to bust
again.
out laughing.
Yeah, here we go again.
I think my favorite scene was Tilly, like funny scene, was Tilly going like Drayton. It seems like Mr. Drayton is very popular, where he's on the phone talking to, doing a teleport kind of thing, like hey to the Guardian, and I see her I'm like Tilly has this weird dynamic with her boss, like kind of in a motherly aspect, like that phone shouldn't be in your hand. And then she goes off this snitch to the wife and comes back down and she watches, right? And when Tasha was explaining it to me when I was doing the blocking and learning everything, she was just like, yeah, Tilly's, you know, she's in and out of the scene. She's kind of like, she's still getting the gossip, but like still minding her business. So you're going to get a little snippet and then you're going to leave, but still be very opinionated without saying anything. You know, it's like the power of minding your business, but you know all the business. And I was just talking about it because at first it didn't connect to me. But when me and Will were going over the scene, trying to practice, I'm like practicing lines. I'm like, I just snitched on you, didn't I?
I
Totally.
love that part. I love that part. Matt Drayton like gets on the phone. Tilly like, okay.
I got
Next
you.
thing you know, Tilly going up the stairs. And then the next thing you know, here come Tilly and Christina. Like, gotcha. It is so subtle, but it cracks me up every time. That's probably one of my favorite Tilly parts.
My favorite line. Eric comes in there, talks to Matt, says, I'm sorry, Mr. Drayton, but are you some kind of lunatic?
I didn't mean to offend you.
And the thing about it is, with that, with him saying that, so like Eric and I, as I said, the Prentices spent a lot of time on the terrace, and so Eric and I would make up little scenarios of what Mary and John would be talking about. Like we were having we weren't speaking as Eric and Joanne, we were speaking as Mary and John. And so as we know, we're about to enter back in for that. He's like, well, I'm going to go talk to this Mr. Drayton. I'm like, okay.
Talk to him right now.
And so
Who is this
the
guy?
last thing I say to him is Mary, and none of this dialogue is written. This is just stuff that Eric and I just decided to do. And so the last thing I say to my husband is, okay, but you just need to be calm and talk to and the first thing out of his mouth, are you some kind of lunatic? Like, dude, that is not what we discussed on the terrace.
I have to Tracy oh there she is. So she keeps going in and out, but Tracy had I think the hardest job in the whole show, and that was playing Hillary St. George, who at the beginning, when you first meet Hillary, she's just this busybody that you're just like, oh God, like she just makes you cringe a little bit. But she's only in the first two scenes. And in the second scene, I would always tell Tracy, based on the or what or whatever that she should run, is when she says she concocts this plan with Christina trying to tell Christina that, oh, let her go off with this black man because pretty soon the animal attraction and the chocolate will lose its flavor. All of that came into play. It was the hard. When I tell you, it's the best being in the audience because I feel like a fly, on the wall with the audience. But predominantly any black women that were in the audience, I was like, Tracy, you need to run for your life. Because there was,
she said it, I could hear, the ooh.
It was either ooh or what. One time it was, what did she just say? And so there were a lot of reactions happening to that, and once again, it's one of those smaller characters, but so necessary and so poignant because somebody had to say it. Somebody had to be that person, that friend, or that neighbor, or whatever it is.
The opposite of the Monsignor, basically.
Complete opposite. And my favorite my favorite was opening night. I will never forget this. Opening night, there was an interracial couple that I sat with, and they were older, and Christina says, Hillary, there is something else you can do for me. And the wife yells out, leave.
Yeah, I remember that.
She can leave. Yep. And her husband tapped her like, shh. And she said, oh, I'm sorry. Did I say that out loud? Realized, yes. Yes, you did. Right. But I think Saturday night was your biggest applause, wasn't it, Tracy, for when you exited, when Christina kicked you out?
I think so.
Yep, that was the biggest applause. I swear, if they could have stood up if they wanted to, and just given Christina a standing ovation for kicking your butt out. But I
think the best part of that of Trey, and poor Tracy, she's having audio issues, and I know it's killing her not to be able to chime in. I think for me, the best part of her playing Hillary, two things. One, facial expressions. Oh my God. Hillary was lurking in the back. It wasn't even so much the dialogue, which was cringeworthy in and of itself. Yeah. Tracy's facial expressions when she was lurking in the background. Oh my gosh. And to top it all off, she is the real life mother of John. The young man who played John. So I just thought that was just great. It was great. And I know it just killed me.
Man.
where Hillary has to
wipe her hands. Yeah.
And I'm just like, you just wiped your hands off your son.
Yeah,
all it was quirks and mannerisms that Tracy
yes.
did, like how she lays across the couch.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Tracy's embodied that character, heart and soul.
Hillary could have very much been a cartoon, and Tracy brought her to life and made her a real person.
Yes.
A person that we all know. We all know a Hillary.
We all know a Hillary.
We all know a Hillary.
Yeah. Yeah. And she could not be more opposite of the actress that portrayed her. That's the
absolutely.
So that's a testament to Tracy's acting abilities. We're going to talk you up, Tracy, because we know you can't speak. So,
but it's incredible how much audience members bought into what they were witnessing as well, and how much they truly believed you all were exactly who you had portrayed. And it was also great to witness the audiences and all of the different or the call and response that happens. I think one thing with Selah that we are kind of becoming a safe place for call and response during our shows for audience members to actually be able to express their thoughts in that moment, including leave, whatever it may be, which is great because doesn't that fuel you as actors when your audience calls and response? Yeah, absolutely. Because somebody said, "Oh, I think I was being rude. I couldn't help myself," and I was like, "No, trust me, they hammed it up because they could hear you," which was great. And Miss Carmen Crawford, I have to listen. If you guys ever get to sit in an audience with Miss Crawford, you have to. She's hilarious. She could barely stay in her seat on the last Saturday at the dinner because you guys had her wilding. Her husband tried to tell her to be quiet, and she said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And then he would go into, "Oh no, she didn't. Oh no, he didn't." And it was hilarious.
I heard this.
It was so much fun watching them and listening to them, and you would hear it was definitely a roller coaster of emotions for the audience because you could hear all of the call and response, and then that tense moment between the Mr. Prentice and Dr. Prentice, that intense moment where it just becomes
Silent,
this very
dead
silent.
Yeah.
Dead silent. They were hanging on every word. And it was the same for the end for Matt's loving, beautiful monologue at the end. It was just dead silent. There is such power in having people hanging on your every word. And you have such control in that point in time, and to drive home a positive message of acceptance and love and reconciliation. And I mean, you guys really, 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 I can't imagine a better cast performing Guess Who's Coming to Dinner. And I just want to say, I love you. I adore you. We're coming to an end here. Is there any last thing anybody wants to share with our audience?
Shout out to John Connor, Sarah Downs, Sydney Martin, Danielle, I can't pronounce your last name. Jaradovic. They could not be with us. Did I remember everybody?
Laney.
That's not here. Shout out to all of them, because we could not have had this journey without them. We missed them being here tonight. They were unable to be with us for different reasons for each of them. But we love you. We miss you. And thank you for being a part of this journey with us. Thanks.
Anybody else?
Thank you guys for caring for the understudy play. And for all the amazing tips and help, because I did Macbeth and I only had 3 lines and a little bit of blocking. And so you guys literally saved me. I was like, oh, what if I mess up? And you guys really helped me like chill out the nerves a little bit. So I just wanted to say that. And Sydney also, like, she's hasn't acted in 10 years, but she just jumped in understudy also after doing all the costume and design, and she was just like, all right, I'm here, I'm acting, and I'm out. And I was like, amazing.
And now she's hooked.
Yes, she is.
Yeah, I just wanted to give a big thanks out to Tasha, and I think I can almost speak for all of us on this one. You're the one that's bringing this opportunity to us. I mean, we as actors, we're very privileged to be able to do these shows. But this is your dream, your vision, your ability to get this out there in the community, and it's priceless. There's not the words. I'm thinking in my head as I'm talking. I don't have the words to express what this means to the community. I'll even say to the world, but especially to us, and I'll speak for myself in this one. It's touched me in a way that I never knew I needed to be, and that's something that needs to be shouted out there across the world. And for you, and I'm sure there's others like you out there that need to keep doing this. And you said it on that Saturday night at the dinner. You're doing the work. And you're going to keep doing the work because it needs to be done, and we're going to be there to support you in that work always. But thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. Yeah, and thanks to our audiences for allowing us to tell these stories, these very important stories. All of the audiences that came out to support us, coming to the table. And look, Miss Latasha's daddy for 5 diddles that second Saturday. There's so much work that goes into putting theater together. It's a labor of love for us. No matter how tired we are, how frustrated we may get. It is still a labor of love, and to be able to tell these stories that sadly are still pertinent in 2023 or relevant in 2023. But it's a pleasure to be able to tell these stories and to have these conversations, because it is very necessary. We are honored, and we are, as Will said, like, we're blessed to be able to do this. So thank you for allowing us the space at Selah to tell these stories where, you know, sometimes other people want to stray away from telling these types of stories because they're uncomfortable.
But you know, we're coming to learn that people don't mind being uncomfortable anymore.
Yeah.
People are learning to sit in being uncomfortable and gaining wisdom on how to do that. I think that's what's important about the conversations that happen afterwards, so that they're not just sitting there and wondering, well, what do I do next? What do I do now? And it's important to tell as many different stories as we possibly can, not just based on race or sexual identity, but all types of stories that we haven't even begun to touch the surface here in the Valley. And so I want to thank each and every single one of you. Dad, thank you for your beautiful words. And thanks to my dad who came up to cook. It was so good and wonderful. It was a lovely event for our dinner. And I coming to the table as well for being our partners with this. And of course, Laurel Ridge Community College for hosting us in our space and holding space for us as we continue this work and not being afraid to be in the work with us as we continue on this journey. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to let you off now and give my last words to everybody. Say bye.
Bye. Thanks for watching.
Bye. Thank you.
So as they all head off, thank you everybody for joining us today and for being a part of this theater talk. We're so happy to have had the cast of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner for having a conversation about their journey and the audience feedback on what was a pretty incredible show. I'm not biased. Yes, I am. We invite you to join us next Monday at 7 o'clock here live, either on Facebook or YouTube or LinkedIn, either. And we'll keep the conversation going about theater being used as a medium for conversation, theater being used as a medium to bring communities together. We'll see you guys next time, and we hope to see you at the theater soon. Bye.